Is your pet toxic? They probably are. I hate to break it to you. Let me explain why I say this. Now, your animal is not toxic to you. Your animal is beautiful, 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 beautiful animals. But what is probably going on is that they have what is called a high toxic load. Now, why do I say this? Well, for starters, we live in a world where there is an abundance of toxins. There are toxins everywhere. And so it's impossible to remove all of those toxins in our world. We can make changes, we can make improvements, but there will still always be toxins. Now, the reason I'm talking about all of this is because a high toxic load can create disease. Now, this is important, because you want your own animal to live a long, healthy, and happy life. If they have a high toxic load, their chances of doing that are diminished. In this video, I'm going to explain all of that to you. I have written a blog post this week. It's called, let me just check for you because I forgot. It's called Your Pet's Toxic Load, What Is It and Why It's Important. And it also shares my 5 top tips for reducing your pet's toxic load. So I'm going to start off this video talking about what is a toxin and what is a toxic load. A toxin is something that's chemical or artificial substance that has the potential to cause harm. The harm can usually occur from the accumulation of toxins over time. So if your animal is exposed to a toxin as a one-off, depending on what that toxin is, if it's the toxins that I'm going to be talking about in here, just say for their food, if they're fed one meal that is toxic, and I don't mean that's going to kill them, but just like, if they're going to go to the shop and buy one food, and I'll explain why I think that's toxic. But if they're fed that one meal, it's not going to have that negative impact on their health. But if they're fed that toxic meal over and over and over and over and over again, the toxins from that meal can accumulate. Now, your animal's body does have the ability to detox, just like we do. But when there is this long-term accumulation of toxins and toxins coming from various and high number of sources, the body can struggle to adequately detoxify from those toxins. Now, a toxic load is how many toxins there are circulating in the body. The higher the toxic load, the higher the chance of things like inflammation, which can then lead to disease in the long term. So what are some of the things, what are the most common things that your animal is going to be exposed to? What are some of the toxins that your animal is going to be exposed to in their daily life or in their weekly life, The first thing is their food. And this is actually probably the highest source of toxin exposure for your animal. And this is concerning, because they eat every day, twice a day, sometimes more, And, is the food you're feeding them toxic? Probably. The reason why their food can be so toxic is if we dial back right to the beginning of the pet food production process, where let's look at the plant foods to begin with. So all plants that are conventionally grown are sprayed with chemicals, pesticides, fertilizers, herbicides, things like that. So the plants are sprayed with these toxic chemicals, and you may know this already. I'm not making this up. There's plenty of research online as to the toxic effects of these sprays. So the crops are sprayed, the vegetables, the grains, the fruits, they're sprayed. Then what happens is some of those veggies and those grains will be in your pet's food. But the next stage along the chain is the animals who eat those crops. So they're consuming those crops that have been sprayed with chemicals. So there is that potential that in their meat, there is going to be residues of those chemicals used to spray those crops. On top of that, you've got the chemicals that are given to those animals, the animals that become your animal's food, the cows, the chickens, the sheep, things like that, animals like that. Those animals, if they're conventionally farmed, not organically farmed, will be given chemicals. They will be given veterinary medications. They will be given antibiotics. They will be given parasite medications. They may even be given hormone growth medications, depending on the species and your locality and what the laws are around that. So again, those chemicals that are given to those animals can leave residue in your pet's food. So, and on that piece, I want to actually focus back on the sprays that are used on the crops. So, a most commonly used spray is what's called Roundup. The main ingredient in Roundup is glyphosate. HR Labs is doing a research study on the impacts of glyphosate, or not the impacts, sorry. They're measuring glyphosate exposure in cats, dogs, and horses, and looking at what those sources are. They're the reason why I say that food is probably the most highly toxic part of your animal's life, based on this study. And if you click through the link in my bio to read this blog post, you will actually see a graph that shows the effective glyphosate level measured in urine of humans, cats, dogs, and horses. Now it's rates, measurements in like ppb, and the measurement is 0.5 for humans, 8 for cats, 15.8 for dogs, and 14.6 for horses. So in summary, it's basically what they're saying is cats on average have glyphosate levels that is 16 times higher than humans, and dogs on average have levels 32 times higher than humans. And interestingly, the data on dogs that they've gathered so far has showed that dogs who eat raw food virtually have no detectable glyphosate. And those who eat canned food have detectable glyphosate. But, newsflash, those dogs who eat grain-free kibble have the highest levels of glyphosate in their symptoms. So throw out that kibble, even that grain-free kibble. Then on top of that, with the food, you've then got the plastics, the packaging, the plastic food packaging. So that has things like plasticides and phthalates. All these potentially have a toxic effect on your animal's body. Other sources of toxins for your animal are the water they're drinking. There's a ton of chemicals in water, fluoride, chlorine, just to name two. Products that you use in your house, any smellies, what you're using to clean your house, what are you using to clean your floors, surfaces, things like that. What are you doing to clean your laundry, your animal's bedding, and things like that. Speaking of bedding, artificial fibers can leach chemicals. A lot of plastics, a lot of fibers are based on petroleum, which is toxic. So these chemicals can leach from these fibers. Medications, think parasite medications. Almost every single animal is given parasite medications on a regular basis. Now, if you've been watching my Instagram of late, you know that I've just released my brand new ebook, The Guide to Natural Parasite Prevention. That is going to help you to take one step to reduce your animal's toxic load by cleaning up and changing those parasite meds to natural options. Vaccinations are a source of toxins. Heavy metals, chemicals, and other medications as well can include what's called neurotoxins. Toxins that can affect your animal's neurological system, creating things like seizures and what have you. Artificial fibers, I spoke about that already. A really great option for a legitimately 100% natural dog and cat bed are those beds that are made by Henry Hottie. Plastics, so your toys, your dog toys, your cat toys, the bowls that you feed those plastics, the plastics that you store your animal's food in, they could all contain chemicals. Your garden chemicals, what are you using in your garden to spray your own garden? Are you spraying weeds and things like that? Another source of toxins for your animals. And so that's just a few. You can get more detail of those in my blog post. Now, I think I said at the top of this video that animals actually that these toxins have a high impact on animals than they do on humans. Why is that? Well, there are a number of reasons. The first reason is animals have a compressed lifespan. Let me make sure I just get this right. They develop and age 7 or more times faster than children. So that's a factor. They're smaller in size. They develop health problems from toxin exposure, they develop health problems from toxin exposure much more rapidly than we do. There's actually a study on that, and I've linked I've hyperlinked to that study in my blog post, so you can go through and read that. They don't have a protective layer of clothing like we do. They lie around on the floor. They lick themselves. They lie if your cats are like my cats, they're lying on the bench tops. So any sprays that you use, anything you use to clean those surfaces, they lie on it or they lick those surfaces, they're absorbing those toxins. So yeah, although there are several reasons why the exposure risk for cats and dogs is so much higher than it is for us. One thing I also wanted to mention before that I didn't, with like your garden sprays and things like that, that's also relevant with respect to where you take your dog. You know, dog parks, you know, any council areas, any council parks, nature strips, they're all, the council spraying chemicals all in those areas. One of my tips that I love sharing with people is have some natural wipes at your front door. When you come home with your dog, wipe your dog's feet to wipe off some of the residue of any toxins that they may have picked up when they're out in those zones that you can't control. At home you can control it and you should, but in those public areas you cannot control them because it's not up to you. And also take your shoes off when you get home, because who knows what toxins you've picked up on the bottom of your shoes, and then you wear them in your house and you traipse in them all through your house. Your animals lick the floor, they lie on the floor, they lick themselves, they absorb those toxins. Now, what are my 5 top tips? First of all, diet. Feed a clean, whole food, species appropriate diet. If you remember back to where I said food is probably the #1 source of toxin exposure for animals, and remember the study that I mentioned about glyphosate, and that the findings that have come out so far showing that those dogs who ate a raw diet had no detectable levels of glyphosate. So I don't even think it was an organic diet, it was simply just not a processed pet food diet. So cleaning up their diet, the best thing, absolute best thing that you can do, not just for toxin, to reduce that toxic load, for a whole array of health reasons as well. Provide filtered water for your cat or your dog. Check, I created a story highlights up above on my account, and it's called Low Tox Pets. I just got myself a new water filter jug, so check out those stories. That's my favorite brand for water filtration. There's a lot of great brands out there, but that's just one thing that you can do. You know, feed your animals and give your animals filtered water and drink it yourself too. Look at natural alternatives for medication. So I mentioned to you about my guide to natural parasite prevention that you can get on my website, ruthhatton.com/shop. It's also available on the link in my bio if you're watching this on Instagram. One of my favorites as well is incorporating a regular detox protocol. What does that mean? Well, part of that is feeding a clean, whole food, fresh diet. The other part is incorporating some remedies, some natural remedies. I have a herbal cleanse product that I sell on my website. I've also got a purify essence, which is a flower essence, also really good for clearing any past trauma as well as toxins. You incorporate a detox protocol regularly throughout the year. It might be every season, it might be twice a year, it might be 3 times a year, whatever, depending on what product you're using and what's going on with your animal. DM me if you've got any questions about that. Another one, my 5th tip, is source some natural sprays for your garden, or better yet, do what they used to do. Get on your hands and knees and pull out those weeds yourself. A lot of and I will actually say on that point, being a herbalist, a lot of those weeds actually have medicinal properties. So yeah. There's a lot in there that I said there. Check out the blog. You can look at it read it in your own pace. You can click through on those links to get those sources that I've referred to. This information in this video and in this blog actually comes from my module, my low toxic load module in my Optimum Wellness course. I ran this course last year, is to help your animal be the healthiest that they can be. I will be running it again in March this year. I've got a link, there's on my website, you can join the wait list for that course. So when it's ready to go live, you'll be the first one to know about it. But also another perk of signing up to that wait list is that you will get 10% off the course. So that's cool. And that's just going to help you give that more insight, more detail, not just about toxins and how you can reduce your animal's toxic load, but all of the other things that I've identified through my time as an animal naturopath and pet nutritionist as being the 10 steps that you can do to help your animal be the healthiest that can be. So there you have it. Thank you for watching, and let me know if you've got any questions. Bye.